Welcome back to my YouTube channel. What if I told you that this penny, a 1 cent 1970 USA coin, could be worth not just a few cents, not even a few hundred or a few thousand, but a staggering $19 million? Suddenly the world shifts because now we are not just talking about money, we are talking about one of the most astonishing cases in the history of coin collecting. A story so fascinating that it has gone viral across communities, social media platforms, and collector forums, because the idea that an everyday coin could hold the power to change someone's life forever is simply irresistible. And that is the beauty of this journey. It is not just about the metal, not just about the mint mark, but about the hidden potential that lies within ordinary objects. The 1970 D penny minted in Denver has turned into a legend for numismatists and ordinary dreamers alike. Some of these coins are known to have unique varieties, double dies, or rare minting errors that make them incredibly scarce. And in the world of collectibles, scarcity is king. The fewer there are, the higher the demand, and the more incredible the value, which is how a coin that originally represented 1 cent has skyrocketed to a mind-blowing valuation of $19 million. And when news like this spreads, it does not remain within the quiet walls of collectors' clubs or specialized magazines. It bursts into mainstream attention, capturing millions of imaginations worldwide. People rush to check their pockets, dig through old piggy banks, open drawers filled with forgotten change, and even search through inherited jars of coins passed down by grandparents, because everyone suddenly hopes that maybe, just maybe, they hold the golden ticket disguised as a simple copper coin. And this is where the story becomes more than just about money. It becomes about the thrill of discovery, about history, about connection to a tangible object that traveled through time. Minted over 50 years ago, during a turbulent period in American history, every penny carries with it traces of the year it was made, the era's technology, the economy, and the story of how it survived in circulation. But when a penny has a rare error or unique marking, that story becomes even more powerful, because now it is not only about survival, it is about being the chosen one, the anomaly, the miracle among millions. And imagine the collector who first stumbled upon this discovery. Imagine their disbelief as they realized what they were holding, a coin so rare, so unique, so valuable, that it redefined what people thought possible in the realm of numismatics. And once that valuation of $19 million was confirmed, the floodgates opened, sparking one of the most viral coin-related sensations of modern times. And yet the story does not stop at financial numbers, because the symbolism behind this penny goes deeper. It teaches us to value details, to understand that the things we often overlook may hold extraordinary power. It reminds us that treasures do not always appear in glittering gold or shining jewels. Sometimes they appear in the smallest, most ordinary forms, hidden in plain sight. And that is why people are fascinated, because it challenges the way we see everyday life. Suddenly that penny on the ground might not be trash but treasure. That old jar of coins could be worth more than gold. And this sense of wonder creates a movement where millions want to learn more, to engage more, to dream more. And while not every penny will turn out to be a fortune, the possibility itself is enough to capture imaginations. The possibility fuels curiosity, and curiosity leads to knowledge, which is why stories like the 1970 D-set keep going viral. They carry that blend of history, rarity, mystery, and life-changing potential that everyone craves, because we live in a world where hope is powerful, and this tiny coin has become a symbol of that. A symbol that life can surprise you in the most unexpected ways, that fortune can be found in the palm of your hand, and that sometimes miracles are small enough to fit in your pocket. And as this story continues to spread, inspiring new collectors, hobbyists, and dreamers, the legend of the 1 cent 1970 D USA coin only grows stronger. And now that you know the story, imagine the thrill of hunting for such treasures yourself. Imagine the excitement of checking every coin and realizing you are part of this incredible movement. Because whether or not you find the $19 million penny, the journey itself is worth it. And if this story has sparked even a little curiosity in you, if it has made you see the humble penny in a new light, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next incredible discovery, because sometimes the most ordinary things turn out to hold the most extraordinary stories. Next, 2003 Lincoln Penny. Imagine holding an ordinary-looking coin in your hand, something you might mistake for spare change at the bottom of a drawer or in an old jar of forgotten currency, and then realizing that what you're holding is in fact one of the rarest and most valuable coins in American history. A 2003 USA 1-cent coin with a face value of just 1 cent, but an astonishing collector's valuation of $12 million. And that revelation alone has set the internet buzzing, fueling countless conversations, sparking debates, igniting dreams, and inspiring treasure hunts as people rush to check their pocket change, their coin jars, their piggy banks, their wallets, and even dusty shoeboxes tucked away in the attic, because the idea that something so tiny, so seemingly insignificant, could hold such a life-changing fortune is the kind of story that never fails to go viral, capturing attention across every platform. From YouTube to TikTok to Instagram to X, where influencers, numismatists, and everyday people alike share videos of themselves searching, reacting, and hoping to strike gold in the form of copper. And this frenzy has grown not just because of the dollar value attached to the coin, but because of what it symbolizes, a hidden gem lying in plain sight, a reminder that miracles sometimes come in the smallest packages, that history hides in everyday objects, and that fate can change with the flip of a penny. And when we talk about why this particular 2003 1-cent coin is worth so much, the conversation goes deeper than hype, because it's tied to rare minting errors, unique die strikes, unusual alloys, and the sheer improbability of a coin slipping through the rigorous minting process with such characteristics intact, meaning only a handful exist in the entire world, and with supplies so scarce and demand so immense, collectors drive the price sky high, auction houses battle to host the sales, and millionaires line up to outbid each other for the chance to claim ownership of this tiny piece of American history. And what makes the story even more magnetic is that ordinary people have actually stumbled upon life-changing coins before. Stories of families who found rare cents in their change and ended up selling them for thousands, tens of thousands, even millions. Stories that spread like wildfire because they plant the seed of possibility in everyone who hears them, making you wonder if the next coin you spend on a coffee might have been the very key to financial freedom. And this coin in particular has exploded into pop culture conversations not just because of its staggering value but because of the timing, surfacing in an age when viral trends are fueled by curiosity, mystery, and the thrill of the hunt. And now we see countless channels dedicated to coin collecting blowing up with millions of views, countless threads dissecting the details of this rare penny, countless speculators debating whether more might still be hiding in circulation, and each new post, each new video, each new share amplifies the craze further, creating a snowball effect that pulls in people who might never have cared about coins before but now suddenly find themselves inspecting every cent they touch. And it's fascinating to watch how a simple story about a 1-cent coin can transcend into a cultural moment. How it bridges generations with grandparents telling grandchildren to check their change and young collectors teaching older folks how to recognize minting errors. And how it unites people across the globe with a shared fascination for rarity, value, and luck. And when you really think about it, the coin itself becomes a metaphor for life, that hidden treasures exist where you least expect them, that value is not always what it seems at first glance, and that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. And as this narrative continues to spread, it teaches us about the art and science of numismatics, how every coin has a story, how errors and variations are born, how collectors build empires around the rarest finds, and how auctions become dramatic battles filled with suspense as prices climb higher and higher. And the climax of it all is that this single 2003 1-cent coin has rewritten the way people think about modern coins, proving that it doesn't always take centuries for something to become priceless, that history can be made in real time, that fortune can appear in the pocket of anyone, anywhere, and that's the kind of story that cements itself into our collective memory, the kind of story that will keep people talking for years. And if you've made it this far, you know this isn't just about coins, it's about curiosity, about wonder, about possibility, and about that spark inside us that wants to believe in hidden magic. So don't just let this pass you by, because maybe your own fortune is closer than you think. Maybe the very coin you dismiss today could be the one that changes everything tomorrow. And while you're here soaking up this unbelievable story, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you never miss the chance to discover more stories like this one cent 2003 USA coin with a face value of 1 cent but worth $12 million. A story that proves small things can hold the biggest surprises in history. Next, 1997 1 cent Lincoln penny. Thank you for joining us today on our channel where we dive into fascinating stories of history, money, and the unexpected treasures hidden in everyday objects. And in this journey, we will talk about one of the most astonishing pieces of modern numismatic lore, the 1997 1 cent coin that, because of its bizarre errors, striking mistakes, and mysterious origins, has been appraised and auctioned for figures so outrageous that it shocks even veteran collectors, with stories reporting values around $17 million. And while the idea that a humble penny could reach such worth might sound unbelievable or like an exaggerated urban legend, the world of coin collecting has always had surprises, and the tale of this coin offers a chance to explore how minting errors happen, what makes them so rare, and why wealthy enthusiasts are willing to pay unimaginable sums for something most of us would ignore if it jingled in our pockets. And as we peel back the layers of this fascinating case, we find ourselves not just in the technical details of minting presses and metallic alloys, but in a landscape of human psychology, scarcity economics, and the deep allure of possessing something no one else in the world owns. And the 1997 penny at the heart of this story captures all of these threads in dramatic fashion. Starting with the fact that coins struck in 1997 should have been entirely unremarkable, part of billions of Lincoln cents produced in that decade, ordinary copper-plated zinc discs carrying the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, mass-produced with extreme consistency by the U.S. Mint. Yet somehow one coin slipped through bearing a combination of flaws so pronounced and so baffling that it transformed from a worthless cent into a multimillion-dollar artifact, with the first error being a dramatic double strike, where the coin was struck not once as intended but pressed again in the die slightly off-center, creating a ghosted doubling of Lincoln's features that gave the coin an eerie, almost surreal appearance, as if two portraits were overlapping. And while double strikes alone can make a coin valuable, what compounded the intrigue here was that the coin also showed a misalignment that suggested it had been fed improperly into the press, with the rim warped and the letters of "In God We Trust" stretched awkwardly, producing a dramatic visual difference from the perfect uniformity expected in circulation coins. And adding to the oddities was evidence that the planchet, the blank disc onto which designs are struck, might itself have been an experimental piece, not quite the usual copper-coated zinc but potentially a leftover alloy from earlier minting experiments, with metallurgical tests indicating trace elements not consistent with the standard composition, fueling speculation that this was not merely a routine blunder, but possibly a transitional planchet, and transitional errors are among the rarest and most prized in numismatics because they represent the brief windows when the mint switches metal compositions or design types, and a few mistakes slip through, producing hybrid pieces that were never meant to exist. And as word of this coin's discovery spread in the late 90s, it captured the imagination of collectors, journalists, and even investors outside the hobby, because the sheer combination of errors, double strike, off-center strike, experimental alloy, misaligned rim, was unlike anything typically encountered, and scarcity is everything in collectibles. For while billions of pennies exist, only this one specimen has ever been documented with this precise suite of mistakes. And when something is unique, the price is limited only by how much the wealthiest bidder desires it, which explains why during a major auction in the 2000s rumors circulated of a sale topping $17 million, a figure almost impossible to comprehend for a penny, yet not implausible when we recall that rare stamps, paintings, and even comic books have crossed similar thresholds, all because of the psychological magnet of uniqueness and rarity. And when we imagine a billionaire collector competing against another to secure bragging rights to owning the most valuable penny in existence, it becomes easier to see how the number could climb so high. And the mystique only deepens when we consider the possibilities of how the coin came to be. For some argue it was a genuine accident of the minting process, a perfect storm of mechanical mishaps and leftover material, while others whisper it could have been a deliberate creation by a mint employee aware that such an oddity would one day command a fortune. And intentional mint errors have been known throughout history, where workers surreptitiously struck off metal coins or unusual varieties, smuggling them out in hopes of later profit. And though the U.S. Mint has cracked down on such practices, the possibility lingers that the 1997 penny was not entirely accidental, which adds to its intrigue, because in collectibles provenance and mystery often fuel demand as much as the object itself. And if you think about the narrative value this coin carries, it is almost cinematic, a 1-cent piece that through quirks of fate or perhaps human mischief transformed into a multi-million-dollar treasure. A story that draws in casual audiences who may never have cared about coins before. And as numismatists explain the errors, the misstrikes, the metallurgical anomalies, the public begins to appreciate that behind every coin in our pockets lies a complex process of design, engraving, metal preparation, striking, quality control, and distribution, and at each step something unusual could occur, though usually caught and discarded, but on very rare occasions released to the public where an unsuspecting person might find it, and this possibility, that extraordinary value could lurk in ordinary change, is what excites people and fuels viral stories about pennies worth millions, nickels with rare dates, or quarters with hidden mint marks. Yet in truth only the tiniest fraction of coins ever holds such secrets, which is why the 1997 penny stands out so dramatically, and it is worth imagining the experience of the person who first discovered it. Perhaps emptying a pocket of loose change and noticing that Lincoln's portrait looked doubled or the rim seemed wrong. Perhaps dismissing it at first as damage, then showing it to a local dealer and watching his eyes widened in recognition of a true mint error of significance, leading eventually to certification by professional grading services, whose sealed holders and numeric grades established legitimacy and market trust. And once authenticated, the penny entered the realm of legend, with collectors debating its value, journalists amplifying the story, and auctions stoking competitive bidding, until the once overlooked set became a trophy commanding more money than most of us will ever see in a lifetime. And if we pause here, the lesson is clear that value is never inherent, but constructed through layers of rarity, demand, story, and perception, and the 1997 penny embodies this better than almost any coin, because in metallic content it remains virtually worthless, yet in cultural and collector significance it became priceless. And this paradox is what fascinates audiences, because it forces us to ask how something so small and seemingly meaningless can acquire meaning far beyond its original purpose, and the answer lies in human storytelling, in the hunger to own the rarest, in the pride of displaying the unique, in the thrill of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, and thus the saga of the 1997 penny will continue to inspire, whether whispered in coin shops, debated on collector forums, or featured in YouTube videos like this, reminding us that treasures can hide in plain sight, and that sometimes even a penny can be worth $17 million. Next, 1996 D. Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating topics in the world of rare coins, a subject that captures the imagination of collectors, investors, and everyday people who may have a hidden treasure sitting unknowingly in their pocket change, because today we are going to talk about the legendary 1996 D1 cent coin. A penny that in some extreme and unique cases has been reported or speculated to be worth as much as $10 million due to its errors, mistakes, and extraordinary rarity. And we are going to explore in detail why this ordinary-looking coin minted in Denver in 1996, a coin that you would normally think of as almost worthless and produced in the billions, can suddenly become a star of the numismatic world and command a value so high that it enters the realm of myth and reality. And as we take this journey together, you will discover the incredible layers of minting history, production mishaps, human oversight, and strange possibilities that can elevate a tiny, copper-plated zinc piece to a treasure more valuable than luxury cars, mansions, and even some priceless art. And it all starts with understanding how coins are made and why errors, though rare, can sometimes happen and slip past the eyes of the U.S. Mint's strict quality control. And when such an error occurs, especially on a coin minted in huge quantities like the Lincoln cent, the survival of even one such coin makes it instantly desirable, and if its error is dramatic enough it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So the 1996 D penny, normally considered common, becomes something else entirely when struck with unusual errors, die clashes, off-center strikes, double dies, planchet mistakes, misaligned dies, broad strikes, or other anomalies that magnify its value. And when you add the excitement of collectors chasing these rare errors, bidding wars, speculative values, and myths surrounding the rarity of certain coins, it creates a situation where the 1996 D penny can be rumored or valued at astronomically high figures such as $10 million. And though that sounds unbelievable at first, remember that collectors have paid millions for rare stamps, baseball cards, and paintings that are small in size but massive in historical significance. So it is no surprise that a humble penny can sometimes achieve the same destiny when everything aligns. So let's begin by imagining the minting process in 1996, the Denver Mint striking billions of pennies on zinc planchets coated with copper, each die carefully prepared to strike the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But even with high standards, mistakes can occur, such as double dies where the hoving process causes the image to be impressed twice at slightly different angles, creating a ghost-like or shadowed appearance on the lettering or the date. And if you happen to have a 1996 D penny with a dramatic doubled die on the obverse showing clear doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," or the date, 1996, such a coin would not only be rare but potentially unique, instantly pushing its value sky high. And then there are repunched mint marks, where the D from Denver was punched into the die more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a visual doubling or tripling effect that excites specialists who hunt these varieties. And then think about off-center strikes, where the coin blank is not seated properly between the dies and only part of the design is struck, leaving a crescent of blank space. And the more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable, especially if the date remains visible, because that date is critical for identification. And if you had a 1996 D penny struck 80% off-center with the date and mint mark still showing, you would have a trophy coin worth thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, in the right auction. And then there are broad strikes, where the collar that normally keeps the coin contained during striking fails, causing the coin to spread wider than normal with a distorted design, or die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies smack together without a planchet in between, transferring parts of the design from one die onto the other, resulting in ghostly impressions like parts of the Lincoln Memorial appearing on Lincoln's portrait, or vice versa. And such spectacular errors add immense desirability. And of course there is the rare possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a cent is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or foreign coin planchet, creating an underweight or odd-sized coin that instantly draws attention from specialists. And if a 1996 D penny were struck on a dime planchet, it would be smaller, lighter, and highly unusual, making it extremely valuable. And in the world of numismatics, these types of dramatic mint errors, especially when combined with myths, scarcity, and high demand, can drive prices into the millions. And while the average 1996 D penny is worth just 1 cent, the mystique of a once-in-a-lifetime error pushes the boundaries of belief, with some people claiming the ultimate error could be worth 10 million. And the psychology of collectors, the passion for completeness, and the drive to own something nobody else has can fuel these values. Because rarity plus demand equals extreme price. And when you think about it, there may be only one such coin in existence, a coin born of chance, unnoticed for years, floating in circulation or tucked away in a jar, until a sharp-eyed collector stumbles upon it and realizes its potential. And that discovery moment is magical. It is like unearthing a hidden diamond in the rough, and suddenly the coin becomes the center of attention. Auction houses promote it as a once-in-history opportunity. Collectors bid feverishly. Media covers the story, myths grow, and the value skyrockets. So the story of the 1996 D penny worth 10 million is as much about the romance of collecting as it is about the cold logic of mint errors. Because what makes a coin valuable is not only its physical characteristics, but also the stories, the legends, and the emotions attached to it. And every scratch, every misplaced letter, every off-center strike tells a story of the minting process gone awry, human error, machine imperfection, and the passage of history. And in this case, the 1996 D penny is more than a piece of metal. It is a symbol of how even the smallest, most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets. And as we imagine the many possibilities, doubled dies, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, off-center strikes, die clashes, misaligned dies, cuds, die breaks, wrong planchet strikes, multiple strikes, brockages, clipped planchets, struck through errors, laminations, and more, we realize that the universe of coin errors is vast and fascinating, and every variation can add uniqueness and value. And when collectors hunt for these errors, they bring passion, patience, and persistence, because finding such a coin is like striking gold. And the 1996 D penny, being so common, makes the discovery of an error within its ranks all the more thrilling, because it is like finding a rare pearl in an ocean of stones. And the rarity creates desire, the desire creates competition, and the competition creates sky-high values. And while not every error penny will reach $10 million, the mere possibility that one could makes the hunt endlessly exciting, inspiring collectors to search their pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars of pennies in hopes of stumbling upon that magical piece. And that is the beauty of numismatics. It transforms the mundane into the miraculous. And so the story of the 1996 D penny worth 10 million is not just about metal, mistakes, or minting, but about human imagination. The thrill of the hunt, and the dream that maybe, just maybe, you could hold in your hand a penny that changes your life forever. And that is why we welcome you into this fascinating world, inviting you to look closer at the coins you thought were worthless, because one of them might be history's next million-dollar discovery, and perhaps the next chapter in the ongoing saga of the legendary 1996 D penny that could be worth $10 million and beyond. And as the story continues, the fascination grows, keeping the dream alive for collectors across the world who know that even the tiniest coin can carry the weight of legends, treasure, and unimaginable value. Last 1998 D Lincoln penny. Today, because we are diving into one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping stories in the entire world of rare coins, a story that shows us how something as small and ordinary as a 1-cent piece, something we often toss aside without a second thought, can actually end up being worth millions of dollars. Specifically, the incredible tale of the 1998 D Lincoln 1 cent that shocked collectors and enthusiasts by being valued at a staggering $6 million. not because it was minted from gold or platinum or covered in diamonds, but because of its mistakes, its errors, its anomalies that transformed it from common change into an object of obsession, a numismatic treasure whose story of misstrikes, doubled features, minting irregularities, die clashes, planchet flaws, alignment oddities, and the sheer improbability of its survival all combined into a perfect storm that makes it an icon of rarity and collector value. And today we will go step by step, layer by layer, possibility after possibility, in one continuous journey, exploring why this 1998 D cent is unlike any other, how errors in the minting process can happen, what types of mistakes contribute to astronomical prices, how demand and rarity intertwine, and why the coin world has crowned this humble penny as a legend. So let's start with the backdrop. Because in 1998 the Denver Mint was in full production of Lincoln Memorial cents, striking hundreds of millions of them, with copper-plated zinc planchets rolling through machinery at incredible speeds, dies striking coins with immense pressure, quality control teams ensuring that the coins met circulation standards. Yet in the midst of that routine, something went terribly, or rather beautifully, wrong, a chain of errors leading to the survival of a coin that would become numismatic royalty. For the first aspect to consider is doubling, one of the most famous kinds of coin errors, where the design elements like the date, the lettering, or Lincoln's profile show a doubled impression caused by misaligned die hubs or shifts during the striking process. And in the case of the 1998 D cent in question, there are reports that its obverse revealed an extraordinary and dramatic doubled die, with Lincoln's features ghosted, with the letters of liberty, and I in God we trust slightly overlapping and shifted, and the numerals of the date 1998 not clean, but visibly doubled, instantly making it an eye-popping anomaly to any collector. And beyond the double die there was also evidence of die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving faint outlines of design elements from one side imprinted onto the other, producing the eerie ghost-like shapes that collectors go wild for. And this coin, reportedly, had remnants of the Lincoln Memorial faintly etched across the obverse fields, creating a surreal effect like Lincoln staring out from a haunted mist. But the marvels didn't stop there, because the cent was also struck on a misaligned planchet, slightly off-center, with its rim not fully contained, creating the crescent mood of blank metal that tells collectors they are looking at a mistake that slipped past quality control. And not only was it off-center, but also it exhibited a broad strike effect, where the collar die failed to properly contain the metal during striking, allowing it to spread outward more than usual, distorting the rim and giving the coin a flatter, wider appearance, adding yet another layer of uniqueness. And if that wasn't enough to mesmerize numismatists, under magnification metallurgical inconsistencies could be detected, a sign that perhaps the planchet was flawed, with uneven plating or incomplete bonding of the zinc core and copper surface, producing subtle texture differences and spots where the color shifted slightly, almost like the coin was part copper penny, part zinc oddity, feeding speculation that maybe this planchet had been a transitional test piece or an experimental strike. And then, astonishingly, the reverse design itself carried anomalies, because while most 1998 cents featured the Lincoln Memorial design crisp and clean, this $6 million cent showed either a partial brockage or misaligned die strike, where part of the building detail seemed missing or doubled in shadow, making the steps and pillars appear broken and blurred, almost like an optical illusion, a detail that when combined with the doubled obverse convinced experts that this was no ordinary circulation coin, but rather a piece touched by multiple minting mistakes, each one already rare on its own, but here impossibly stacked together, amplifying the rarity beyond comprehension. And when such a combination emerges, rarity translates directly into astronomical value, because collectors understand that while any single error can be fascinating, the chances of so many different mistakes coexisting on one coin are astronomically low. Like lightning striking in the same place 3 or 4 times, And that's why this coin story resonates, because it is not just a double die, not just an off-center strike, not just a die clash, not just a planchet anomaly, but all of those rolled into one, an unprecedented symphony of mistakes. And then we must consider the psychology of collectors, because coin collecting thrives on the concept of rarity, scarcity, and stories that captivate. And here was a coin with a story so powerful, an error so multi-layered, that it became more than just a mistake. It became a legend, sparking bidding wars, driving prices higher and higher, until it reached that unbelievable $6 million level. Because once a coin reaches mythical status, its price is driven not just by the tangible errors, but by its aura, its reputation, its status as one of one. And to understand how such errors can happen, we need to think about the minting process itself, which is surprisingly complex, involving the creation of master hubs, working dies, planchets, collars, and high-pressure presses. And at each step there is the chance for human error, mechanical misalignment, or unexpected wear. For example, a double die comes from hubbing, when the die is impressed more than once and those impressions don't align perfectly, and when that flawed die is then used to strike thousands of coins, the double design repeats again and again. But in some cases, perhaps due to quick detection or unusual circumstances, only a few survive, making them ultra-rare, and in this case perhaps the die was used only briefly, producing a handful of cents before being retired, and the $6 million coin may be one of only a tiny number to slip into circulation, surviving until discovery, while the die clash error likely occurred when the mint press cycled without a planchet, causing the dies to slam together, etching designs into each other's faces, meaning that subsequent coins bore ghostly impressions of the opposite side. And if the very same die that already had doubling also received a clash, then any coins it produced were instantly remarkable. Now factor in a misaligned planchet, which can occur when the blank doesn't seat properly in the press, leading to an off-center strike, and then imagine that this particular planchet also had metallurgical flaws. And you start to understand why this one coin became an error collector's dream, a perfect storm of imperfections, each one adding another zero to its value. And yet, what makes it even more tantalizing is the idea that such errors were never supposed to leave the mint at all, because quality control is meant to catch them, meaning that this coin's very existence is a failure of oversight, a little miracle of survival. And whenever a coin story includes that element of escape, that feeling that it slipped past the guardians of normality, its mystique grows even stronger, like forbidden treasure. And then there's the broader context, because 1998 was not generally considered a key year for Lincoln cents, nothing like the famous 1955 double die or the 1909 SVDB, but precisely because it was an ordinary year, the sudden appearance of a $6 million anomaly caught everyone off guard, amplifying the shock factor, and collectors rushed to check their change, scouring their jars of pennies, magnifying every 1998 D cent they could find, dreaming of striking it rich, though of course none matched the combination of errors that made the one true legend. And this frenzy itself helped push up the value, because hype and anticipation create demand, and demand without supply creates astronomical prices. So in the end, the story of this coin is both mechanical and psychological, both physical error and human desire, both accident and destiny, and that's why it has become a numismatic superstar.